Can you see yourself? There you go. So hi, everybody. I'm Eric. I got a couple jobs. One of my jobs is the program director for the game art program at UArts, University of the Arts, uarts.edu. Another one of my jobs is I'm an art director for games. So I'm going to show you how we do some visual design for UI in some of the games I worked on. Now this is like behind the scenes, super secret, internal use only, confidential documentation from Wizards of the Coast, but it's from 2016, so I don't think they care anymore. How many played Duels of the Planeswalkers, precursor to Magic the Gathering Arena? Anybody? All right. Well, I was the art director on all those games, all the way up to Arena, the release of Arena. And so this was UI design, and these are a couple of comps for coming up with different UI elements that we could use, transitions in particular, to get us in and out of the menus. And we're using like elements from the campaign style guide. This is attached to a paper card game. So we already had a style guide for the paper cards, product packaging, that sort of thing, card advertisement, marketing. So trying to, yes.
I was about to ask, yeah, we can't see it.
I don't see it.
You cannot see my screen, even though I shared my whole screen.
Yeah, it's just showing you. And it still gives me the ability to share my screen. So I guess like Zoom's not
you're not actually sharing. You're not sharing, Eric. You need to share more.
It says I'm sharing here. Let me try it again. How about now?
Hey, now we can see.
Now
it.
you're sharing. Yay.
All right. So here we go. Visual design for UI. Now, one of the reasons why we did it this way, if you notice what we're looking at here is Adobe Acrobat. It's just like a PDF reader. One of the reasons why we use this is like everybody has a PDF reader. It's about as close to a standard document file type as we've got. Even a browser can open PDF documents. And the way that I'm animating this is with my mouse scroll wheel. So I can examine any frame I want. I don't have to worry about downloading a fancy video player that's got scrubbing ability or frame advance. I can stop on any frame I want and examine it as a UI element or as a piece of a transition. And I can send this to other stakeholders for approval. That's one of the reasons why we did it. Another reason is we're doing these mock-ups in Photoshop. We're skipping right past the UI wireframing part of the process and going straight to visual design because we have a pretty good idea. This is like the 5th or 6th game of this series I art directed. So we had a pretty good idea at that time, like what the user experience we were going for was going to be, how many clicks it takes to get into the game, et cetera. And so we didn't have to do too many wireframes. We just skipped right to visual development for the UI. So the other benefit of doing it this way is we're using these elements in Photoshop, and Photoshop also is where we're designing these elements. So if we get an approval on one of these visual development PDFs, we can just take those assets and send them straight to the game developers. We had game developers working in around the world in Great Britain, and we could just send them this Photoshop document and they could actually use these as in-game assets. So we're doing double duty of, visual design, getting approvals for UI transitions and wireframing all in one. So here's the Photoshop file. And as you can see, all of those transitions are different layers organized into layer groups. Now, I don't know how many of you have used layer comps in Photoshop, but here's the real meat of how you can take advantage of this. Layer comp's hidden under this little icon. If you can't see that, you go up to Windows, Layer Comps. And it's really easy to make a layer comp, and layer comps will, they will record what is showing in this little layers palette right here. So if I wanted to do the layer comp A, for example, turn that off. Turn this off. Let's say I just want to do layer comp A. Just hit the plus symbol in the layer comps thing, and it's saving the version, a layer comp, I'll just call it A, that has the visibility of all my layers recorded. And so since A is the only one showing, it's saving that. Hey, my timer said I've already gone through 5 minutes, but because I didn't get my screen share for the first 2 minutes, I'm not counting that as part of my 5 minutes. So I'm going to run over. You see here, you could also record position, appearance, and other things. But and you could add yourself comments so you can keep them straight. But if I just save that as layer comp, I've now got a layer comp A. As soon as I mess around in this layers palette, switch to like layer comp B, so different layers are showing. I could have any number of layers showing in this, it'll record them all. You see that little symbol disappeared from right there. That means we're no longer in layer comp A, something's changed in the layers palette. But I could save this version of it as B. And now I have 2 layer comps. If I want to switch back to A, it'll switch back to all of the layers I had showing. So I got multiple layers showing, everything organized. And it would switch me back to the state it was in when I saved that layer comp. I can also switch back to B. If I wanted to turn that off and watch up there in the layer comp menu, it'll show that I'm not in a layer comp anymore because something's changed. But then I could save it as C. So now I've got a bunch of layer comps. I can switch between them. I can save these states of them. When I'm ready to export to PDF, it's real easy. I can just go to the file export dialog, and there's this little script, layer comps to files. So I could spit them out as individual JPEGs. It's good to share in documents. But I could also go layer comps to PDF, which gives the additional choices of, you know, maybe we want to advance every 5 seconds. Maybe we want to loop after the last page. Maybe we want to do selected layer comps only. I'm just going to run it, and this will take a second. Again, this doesn't count till my 5 minutes. This is Photoshop time. Talk amongst yourselves. We're just going to take a minute here and let the layer comp run, and I'll show you the progress bar so you know that it's happening. Progress bar is on my other screen. Here it is. So you know it's writing a file, it's writing a PDF, it's making a PDF. And this is one of the ways that you could make one of those PDFs that I was scrolling through earlier with nothing but my mouse wheel as a prototype for the game assets. It's got one more to go. Doesn't usually take as long, but this is a really big file. It's almost a gigabyte big because there's a whole bunch of layers there that are hidden. And these are, this is a huge file. I should mention, by the way, that my lead visual designer, Scott Ukamura, really great UI designer, put all this together, designed all the icons you saw and everything. So this was a great way to get payoff at a big place like Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast. You need to get buy-off from like 7 levels of upper management for every little nuance in the game. So it helps to have a file type like this that even non-artists can look at, scroll through, and figure out what is great about it or what needs changed about it. So it's done. And we can look at our PDF. Well, maybe not. Talk amongst yourselves. Does anybody have any questions? Layer comps to PDF was successful. Yay! So now if we want to see what that looks like, we could open this PDF. And it's asking if we want to go full screen. I'll say yes. And then you can see that we've got our layer comp here. And I've asked it to advance every 5 seconds. So look, Ma, no hands. I'm not touching my mouse, and it's advancing by itself. So you could even, like, you know, have this as a self-running presentation if you want. Pretty cool. That's all.
Oh yeah, that was a neat peek behind that curtain. I would never have thought about using a PDFs for demoing UI like that. That's great.
I am mad at myself that I didn't know this, because so many times, especially when dealing with execs, they I tried to watch the video, but it opened up in AOL and I don't know what to do with it. Or I was like, oh my,
Yeah,
that's
and video codecs and all that stuff. Nobody knows how to use
Yeah.
videos. So when you're sending stuff to execs, just send them PDFs.
Oh.
And if you do it like this, where you sort of frame advanced transitions, they can scroll through it themselves and they can look at it at their own pace, and they can get a pretty good visual, enough to buy off, what they're
frame
looking
by
at.
frame markup. This is gold. I am cutting a hole in the ceiling and stealing this meme. This worth the price of admission alone. I have definitely learned more than one thing tonight, but that was awesome.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it sharing.
I have a question.
Yeah, questions, please.
So the you showed the UI thing with the clicking through all the little circles, then light up and all that stuff. So when you're working on a game like a big budget game like that, how many, disregarding even like sound people and programmers, like how many artists do that one thing? Is there's like a layout person and like an animator, and like how big is that? Just that one little screen. How many people work on that?
Well, we were the game producers, but the actual development team, like I said, was in England. So I'm not sure how many staff artists they had assigned to our project. 2 or 3, I assume. We only had one art director and one visual designer on our end, and that was me and my lead designer, Scott. So between the 2 of us, we designed every screen in the game and all the transitions and front end, you name it.
Wow, that's really cool.
We even did animated cards. If anybody remembers that game, there was surprise animated cards. Like if you went full screen with the cards, some of the card art would be animated. And we made a lot of that in-house, and we outsourced some of it to the England studio. But if anyone ever saw Grave Titan, you know what I'm talking about.
That's cool. It looks awesome.
And again, I just have to say that those of you who are not yet in the corporate world or in working in a large organization, I cannot stress how brilliant the technique is, because it's no video codec, it's full quality, it's frame by frame. If they're really clever execs, they might know how to do markup and notes in Acrobat. But even if they don't, it's still, I mean, there's just so many good things about this. And that's something that, I think it's the kind of thing that you often only learn by going into and doing this in industry, realizing, oh crud, I have to communicate this very difficult concept to somebody who has no understanding of dealing with this kind of art assets or anything like that. And so, no, this is triple genius.
I was lucky enough to have a visual designer that could make PDFs like that just about as fast as you could do generic wireframes. So that's how we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We could get UX out of the way. At the same time, we've got visual development done. If we get buy off on it, it's all in one piece.
And even, by the way, just this is where I say to people, I've been using Photoshop in one form or another for 4 decades now, it seems, or something close to that. Certainly over 30 years. And I think I know 5% of the tool, and I've used it in a production environment. Never dealt with layer comps. And now it's like, I'm going to look for my next excuse to use layer comps, because that's exactly the kind of, I can imagine the situation. So yeah. So I love when people have on their resumes, oh, I'm 100% in Photoshop. It's like, BS. There is no way you know everything that stupid program can do. So anyway, thanks for that. That was awesome.